Welcome everybody coming in. Looks like we're starting to get some attendees coming in from the waiting room. Bring it on. All right, while people are coming in, before we get into the content, we'll kick it off with some intros and would also love to hear where all of our attendees are coming from. So I will introduce myself for today's webinar. I am Mary Foster, VP of Marketing and Demand Gen at Ambition. I am from the Nashville area, so drop in the chat where you're from, Southeast Girly. With us today, I'm excited to introduce our other panelists or let them talk a little bit about themselves. I'm going to kick it over to my friend, Jared Robin. Tell us who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Jared. I'm a Libra. I live in Brooklyn, New York. I'm co-founder of Rev Genius, and I've been friends with Mary and Ambition for quite some time. Alexandria is a new friend of mine, and I'm just so hype to be here on the inaugural Hot or Not.
Yes, thank you for being here. Alexandria, tell us a little bit about where you're from.
Hi. Yeah, kind of from everywhere. So I'm half Canadian, Midwest, West Coast gal. So hopefully fits a lot of those attendees. I've been with the Phoenix Suns for about 6 years. So hopefully everyone's been watching the playoffs. And I manage our BI and our CRM team. And we've been fortunate enough to have Ambition with us for the past 5 years and hopefully for the foreseeable future. So.
Yes. All right, let's get into it. A couple quick housekeeping things. Nothing is off limits in the chat or Q&A. If you have a question about what we're talking about or a comment, definitely leave it. If you have a question about something we're not talking about, but you want someone's opinion, leave that too. And we'll be monitoring the Q&A and the chat. This will be recorded and sent out afterwards. So let's get into it. Why we're talking about this today, I'll set the scene really quickly. This will be surprising probably to 0 people if you are in sales or SaaS, but there's a lot of challenges in the market right now. So we did a recent survey of different teams and enablement people, and some of the top challenges are tight budgets, limited investments in tools and tech, and headcount. That's not going to be a surprise. And I think because of that tight budget, we're also seeing a lot of strategy and process change as people react to a very fast pace change in the market. We also asked, okay, based on your challenges and your strategy changes, what are some of your priorities? And a lot of the priorities are around building an enablement function to support implementing strategic change. So if you have big top level initiatives that you want carried out through the front lines, that's going to require some enablement. It's going to require structuring a coaching program. We also see a lot of people talking about messaging, thinking about pipeline. So yes, a lot of changes in the market, but also we're still having the same challenges. Everyone's been trying to build pipeline for a long time. So like nothing new, but how we go about it might be different. So with that in mind, we're going to talk about some topics and be like, yeah, that's in, no, that's out, and kind of some other context around them. So the first take that we're going to react to is if we're talking about enablement, something that a lot of enablement functions have struggled with is proving out ROI. So if we look at this here, one way enablement sometimes will show effectiveness, or the metric they look at is adoption of, like, maybe could mean a million different things, of the tooling, of the process. Are you sending a collateral? But adoption as a hero metric for a business, hot or not?
I'll go first. I think scorching hot, pretty much like the Phoenix heat right now in the summer, at least in our world. We would be nowhere without adoption. I think that starts from the ground up, everywhere from the sales process to Ambition. If we don't have adoption from sales leadership to sales reps, we would be nowhere. So for us, this is a key metric that's almost highlighted every week with our processes, all of our technology, and it's about the adoption and buy-in, and that's really the only way we'll be able to be efficient organization and especially efficiency across our sales force. So this is a huge metric, and as you find other metrics that aren't exactly correlated to revenue, you can't quite put a dollar figure down, but you know, you would be nowhere without it. So I would say hot.
Jared. Oh, there we go.
So I think hot as well. And I'm thinking hero metrics though, like this is internally with the org, and I think that's super important metrics there. But I'm thinking value to clients, right? Like that's the North Star. Does adoption have like how do you define adoption? Are they using the product, or are they using the product and getting benefit, right? Because just using the product, yay, but like you have somebody that could potentially churn, right? Just using ambition, for instance, that's great. That's light years better than not. But using ambition and seeing whatever your key KPI is, like seeing sales team increase their numbers or do A, B, or C that benefits your client, is how I'm thinking through aligning hero metrics as like North Star metrics, things that benefit the people you serve. So yes, for an internal metric, yes, scorching hot, but I'm thinking metrics, client success.
Yep. I'll add to the one thing I do like about it is that it can be used as a leading metric. Like if you are waiting for change or the lagging metrics or the impact metrics, you can start somewhere. It can be like a quick track metric. But I think it's just lukewarm.
Yeah.
I guess the game is hot or not. And I'm going lukewarm. Maybe. This is probably my favorite one. Shorts and crop tops in the office. Okay, real talk. There is a lot of conversation around people going back in office, mandated back in office or highly encouraged back in office. But we're also seeing a lot of people leave their jobs if they're required to go back in office. And I wonder, part of that could be the commute, part of that could be a million things. I'm going with shorts and crop tops in the office is hot. I think we should let people bring their whole selves, their best selves to work. All right, Alex, I'm going to you. Hot or not?
I would probably get sent to HR, but that is more because we are currently in the office 24/7 and we have pretty much a rotating season. So I think our business is a bit different. But I own about 10 pairs of biker shorts. So by all means, I think in that facet, it is hot, and especially in the summer. So that and a crop top, by all means, rock it. So rock it for me because I won't be able to rock it during the week. So
I love what Steve said in the chat. He said, not. Reality check, HR is already annoying enough.
Yeah, I'm the head of HR here, so it's a positive, it's hot. Like I think what you wear and how you look is not a representation of how well you're going to do the job. I'm sure there are exceptions to you know how you know what you wear, but like in general, I mean, I'm wearing a crop top and shorts right now, so
I like
I'm
it.
all in.
I like it. All right. Also, while we're here, bonus sort of related, back in office, hot or not. So I know, Alex, you're in an office right now. Jared, you might be in an office or a home office. I am currently also in an office, but in office, hot or not. Kim immediately in the chat is like, not. Kim is not going back to the office. What do y'all think? Back in office.
I don't have to say. I think it's dependable on the business, right? I think it depends on the department, the work you're doing, where headquarters are. I think every industry is different, every department. So ideally, hybrid flexibility. I think that might have been one of the biggest benefits COVID gave us all, is that kind of new sense of life and balance. So in that case, I think it's great for your health and having that balance.
I think in office, it depends. Like I want to say not, but because you could hire much better talent than those that could just commute to your office and have what could be a better culture. But I guess like it really depends on the outcomes. If you're driving the outcomes you want and people aren't coming to the office and they're having a great culture like that, keep it going. Now, if you're not, and you work a day or two hybrid and you find that that's the secret sauce to driving the outcomes, like open to it, like be objective about it. But I would start with not. We're a fully remote team and we'll probably stay that way forever.
Yeah. It seems like in the chat too, a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm not going back to an office. I moved. I would need a new job, kind of what you're saying. The one thing I think that we're not really saying with in office or not, like if you want people in office because you want to monitor them and make sure they're working, I think that is so dumb.
Mhm.
But one thing that I do miss, honestly, is like the no agenda conversation. Because of the Zoom world, everything is like, what's your POW? What's your agenda? And I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes I just want to shoot the shit and see how someone is. And like something, you learn something that you never would have learned in a formal agenda. And so I do miss that being a part of like a remote hybrid situation is kind of just sometimes the like no agenda combo.
I think it draws us apart from our team as well. I wouldn't say that in person necessarily fixes that. I think there's much more that's needed to fix that and create like a collaborative culture than just that. But
Yeah.
you know, there's downsides for sure. But I don't think showing up in person is all that's needed to address the downsides. I think they're deeper rooted than that.
Yeah. And before I go on to the next slide, Steve, if you're still here, I know in chat you said as a sales manager in office lets you see and hear everything for a coaching opportunity. I'm curious if like Gong or a Chorus or like call recording software has like become a bigger part of your life being remote. So that would be interesting.
Or Nooks, right? Like they have the remote calling.
Yep. Yeah, Nooks is interesting. Super on the come up. Oh, Nick hopping in. Nooks for the win. We piloted Nooks when they were very, very small and not yet an official customer, but I do like them. Okay. The rise of the chief go-to-market officer. So there's been a lot of talk on Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever, like who really owns go-to-market. Kyle Lacey is someone I follow. He's like adamant it's marketing. Other people are like, it's the CEO. Jared, I know you have a take, so I'm gonna throw it to you first, but chief go-to-market officer.
I mean, my take is similar to Lindsay's take. I put myself around smarter people. I put the article in here. The thought is, and there's a lot of thoughts, and we're having like a lot of debate on this. Whether it's this title or under a different role, like having the oversight and the holistic view of the full org, including revenue, product, even like a dotted line to product is essential. I think what Lindsay was saying, one of the challenges with the CRO is they're not always doing that. And there's different, or you could go to the link and see the org chart, but like alignment in general is hot. Okay. And if it takes a chief GTM officer to do that, assuming it's not adding extra silos on the senior leadership, it has other people like different alignment and it's the same or less people in the senior leadership. I think that's the core behind it, right? No matter who, like we could argue about semantics or not, or different roles. If this nets out at the same or less people on the C level, and it increases alignment as I go dark, how can you not, pardon me, how can you not be for that? Take the title away, increasing alignment and the same or less bureaucracy.
Why do you think that doesn't happen with the typical roles at C-level today? Like why is the CEO not responsible for alignment, or the CRO, or?
They are. It's just not always happening. Like the CRO. Well, first off, the CEO is putting out fires. Like, yes, it is ultimately the CEO's job, but
Yeah.
when half your day is new fires or old fires, like you need to free up. The COO handles traditionally a lot of the business affairs. It could be the COO theoretically, but like depending on the size of the org, it handles a lot of the finance, a lot of the organizational stuff, all of that. CRO. So you just promoted a VP of sales to CRO. They're figuring out everything.
Yep.
How is this the person? It should be the person. I think CRO either needs to evolve into this, or this person needs to come up from Go and replace the CRO. Like, dare I say that? And it could be the same person in some orgs, but like, it's a really great debate.
Yeah.
That's why it's a question here today.
Yeah. I think part of it too could potentially, it gets sticky, but aligning compensation is like a big part of it too. Like, we have essentially comped marketing on pipeline gen. I'm not saying everyone does it this way, but I think a lot of people would say pipeline gen is a big part of marketing's comp. Some of them are comped on closed won revenue, and then you have sales all the way on closed won revenue, and then you have CS on renewal. It's like sales might sell a less than ideal account, and then CS ends up taking the hit on their book if they can't renew it. Marketing might be like, we're generating all this pipeline, but why isn't sales closing it? Sales can't close it. That's not our fault. But I do think a big part of this alignment is also aligning comp structure. And I think we'll see that change a little bit too, where someone ultimately is like, we're all aligned around revenue or ARR or something similar. Alex, do you have anything to add there?
I think I mirror what Jared is saying. I think for us, we actually have a CMO position open, so we'll slide that in if anyone wants to come work for the Phoenix Suns. But I think for us, it's less about titles and more about that cohesion and making sure those two execs, their departments aren't siloing each other, right? We're talking marketing and sales, two of the biggest drivers for most organizations. So in that end, a title is a title, but it's almost meaningless if you don't have that alignment and that cohesion. So I think that's kind of the biggest debate on what does that position look like? Is it needed? Is there more of a hierarchy that should come over EVP of sales and EVP of marketing? Should that live under the same umbrella? So that's a big discussion in the sports realm, is how to even further unite that bridge. If that means merging and having one exec over the top instead of two, something kind of worth the debate, and I think worth talking about with every team, which we're currently doing.
Yeah, I think that's smart. And one thing that used to drive me crazy early in my career, and maybe it was just a lack of like experience or like understanding. But when people would use the word alignment, and I'm like, cool, alignment, what does that really mean? Like, somebody define it. Somebody freaking tell me how we know if we've achieved it. Cause everyone's like, sales and marketing aren't aligned. And I'm like, I don't know. I think we're cool.
Yeah,
But
I just put in what Lindsay, the author of this, wrote.
Yeah. Okay. So the ship has sailed on the CRO.
Being the impartial arbiter of go-to-market, not in the CRO, right?
But like,
it's with the exception of the rule nowadays. They're highly focused on sales or sales and marketing.
yeah.
If there's a substantial expansion motion, they may also take on some aspects of customer success, but the word revenue is in the title, which speaks volumes to me.
Yep.
In a large enough organization, you could have a CRO reporting to a chief GTM officer, right? Because GTM is more than just revenue. Having a CRO run your GTM is essentially having a sales-led organization. Ooh.
Yeah. And I
This
see
may
it.
be viable for many, but if you're in the building phase, having someone dialed in and comped on short-term revenue goals could lead to gaps in your GTM.
Yes. I love how specific it is. This article from Lindsay really not just leaning on the word alignment, but talking specifically about incentivization, compensation, structure. Like, that's what it means, right? So I think, Yeah, this will be more to come. I don't know if anyone in the chat, if you do know, have you seen any orgs that do have this position? Do you know any chief go-to-market officer people at companies? I'd love to know in the chat.
I Googled it and I found one that was hired and fired before today from Datadog. Not hired yesterday, fired today, like hired a couple years ago, was there for a year or something.
Yeah. Anybody on the call, if you know, put it in here. All right. Candid and cadenced coaching. So a relationship in which you can't be candid isn't a relationship at all. It's a charade. If a connection is worth maintaining, it's worth improving, kind of just looking at Adam Grant's take and like, how do you take that into like a employee manager relationship of like, it's regular, we're meeting all the time, we're talking about performance, but we're also talking about you as a person and development, which sometimes makes you better at work, even if it's something outside of work that's not directly related. So I'll go first here. I think hot, again, it goes back to sort of like the conversation around your clothes, but I want to bring my full amount of self and crazy to work. And I want to have like a trust with my direct leader, where I can be super open and honest. And there won't be a recency bias that just because last week I was a potential train wreck, this week I might be like the best marketer that ever lived, you know? So I think it's hot. I think regular coaching, one-on-ones where you talk about work, but also things outside of work and personal development. I say hot. Steve in the chat says hot. Jared, what do you say?
Hot. With the caveat, right? Because there was this whole thing like from Kim Scott, like radical candor, and people were being assholes with it. Right. So like I veer towards the kind candor.
Yeah.
But yes, hot, absolutely. Just be kind with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think overall hot. I think the more you can be yourself, the more you can be open, I think just leads to more growth, more leadership opportunities. And if you feel like you have to hide yourself or any part of your life to an appropriate extent, maybe it's not the right working environment. So hot.
Hot. I do want to say, I do feel for some new managers coming into this situation where potentially you're on a team, you're just a peer, a buddy, and then you go into like people leading. And I don't think we necessarily prepare high performing sellers for like some of the management things that do include like candid conversation, radical candor. I don't know that we're preparing everyone for it. So that is one thing I think about too, is like our leaders, new leaders especially, like how do we equip them to like be a great coach or leader out the gate, knowing that people are not just workers or robots, they are people. And you're going to have to not just tell them how you would close a deal or how you'd advance to stage 2. Like there's a lot more that goes into it. And we don't necessarily prepare people for that. Okay.
Well, no, great point. And also like adding, just going like if you're candid based on your one experience without taking into account why that person is acting that way or not. I mean, there are cases where you have to be empathetic to the other person and understand, to come to the right solution. So collaborating with them, so to speak, is critical.
And Ray just put this in the chat, so I'm gonna ask y'all, Alex, you first, but are the panelists fans of the shit sandwich approach, which I am familiar with, of like, nice thing, here's where you could be a lot better, end on a nice thing. Curious, Alex, if that's something that you're familiar with.
Yes, I think it depends, right? I think some people you need that approach with, the kind of a pat on the back, here's the feedback, another pat on the back. We see a lot, I think, more in the sales world, but there's some people where it's like, give it to me straight. I don't want to be coaxed on either side. I don't want you to feel that you have to put it between two positive entities. So I really think it's just having that awareness on who are you coaching? What do they need? How are they going to respond to? But this is definitely effective with certain individuals is kind of that positive, negative, positive for them to fully understand. But.
Yeah. And that awareness is key. And I would argue sometimes the people who make a better sales manager are not necessarily the best sellers. Like, I know that's typically the way we promote, but I do think that will be a change, a super hot change that is like, not every great seller is the right candidate to be the next manager. I think it is someone who understands people. Like, I am motivated by someone telling me I can't do something. So like compliments I love, but if someone's like, yeah, I don't really think you'd be able to do that, nothing makes me want to try harder to do. And people are like that, you know, right? Where other people, if you doubt them, it would crush them. Like it would just absolutely crush them. So you have to be the person who's like, I believe 100% in my heart you could do this or whatever. But not every great seller has that awareness or the patience, not to use the word coddle in a negative way, but to like tailor their approach, you know, to different humans.
I agree. I mean, for in the sports, I think for us, it's the Wayne Gretzky we always look at, right? One of the best players to do it, but not so great when it comes to coaching. So how can we further look at that when it's promoting internally or outside or coaching? And like you said, not everyone is meant to be one or both. Some are just meant to be one or the other. So less about trying to force that and figure out truly what's the best fit for your organization.
Yeah.
Shit sandwiches are not for me, dog. Like, if it's not authentic to me, I'm not going to say it. And with that said, you have 5 people on your team. They might have 5 different styles. And if you're not knowing how each person learns, like if I went to Mary, nice shoes, you suck at your job. You have a cool car. Like, I mean, it's also executing the shit sandwich, but like that technically is one. That's full of shit. Like we're being candid here now too, right? Because that's what's on the screen. So like you got to be candid with yourself. Fuck that shit. Yeah. Like understand how each person learns. Adam J, shout out, a great friend and a great leader, has like a paper like a document he shares with each of his like team to like understand how they learn and how they work, and then he coaches them based on that, right? Like because you want to, and I think that's key, and he'd be a great person to have on Hot or Not, Mary. Like he and that's key. So like some people might actually respond very well to a shit sandwich, other people might get so turned off by it that you're full of it. So know who you're speaking to.
Yeah. Nick put in the chat too that he has everyone take the DISC assessment, which I have taken. Shout out high D's on the DISC assessment. But yeah, I think that personality tests, we'll just throw this one in here. Personality test, hot or not? I think hot. Here's why. People love talking about themselves. They love knowing about themselves, and just you as a leader giving out personality tests, people I think will respond positively to that. Personality
lukewarm.
Yeah,
I think I take it with a grain of salt, right? That used to be part of our people and culture onboarding training. I think for some people that are maybe more leaning heavily towards one or the other, I think it definitely helps on who you're hiring, who's on your team. But I think there's a lot of people that almost fall in the middle. So for us, I would say lukewarm, take it with a grain of salt, but not overly on the hot or not.
Yeah, I think the same, especially like I remember taking one like before interviewing with a company and I got rejected just from that. And I tried so hard to gamify that to like be the perfect person. And they saw right through it. Like, come on. I might have actually been the perfect person, but because psychologically, like in that state, like in that point, it was just weird to me. It might be better at certain parts of the process.
Yeah.
Than others.
Very cool. This is not a question.
I did it. I got like you're not qualified. Like I was qualified enough to get the test. I didn't even make a screening. I'm like, wow.
You're like, based on who you are as a person.
Wow, you clearly put the answers you thought we wanted, and I could tell exactly who you are.
We know what kind of person would do that.
It's like likes other people, 10. Duh.
Probably true though. I think you do.
Hates when people lie. One, they're like, they didn't believe that that's actually a real person.
You're an AI. Okay, next topic, efficient growth over growth at all costs. So this tracks back to what we saw in the beginning, some of the data points, but we went from in tech specifically to a lot of big valuations, people growing, hiring, to the pendulum very quickly swinging the other way. We saw a lot of layoffs. I think we still see that on LinkedIn. But efficient growth, meaning like we scrap and maybe do like wheelchair to the moon versus rocket to the moon. Efficient growth, hot or not? Alex, you first.
I'd probably say hot. This is probably more towards, I think, our current industry, especially in sports. I think a lot of industries in the current world, especially like at the past 3 years, just the unpredictability, right? You look at the economy, where the workforce is, and for us, you truly can't predict what's going to happen next season. We got KD this season. We could have, knock on wood, hopefully no injuries, but truly having that predictability factor in sports is huge. So I think being able to have a sound base for your business and be able to continually efficiently grow year over year, or if kind of the worst case scenario happens, you go back to a 19-win team, hopefully not, you'll at least be set up for success. You're not taking a complete downturn. I think in some situations where you do have to take advantage of certain trends, tech, for us players, you do have to quickly grow at all costs in that moment to take advantage. But I think for us as an organization, looking in the next 5 to 10 years, just how do we maintain that efficient growth, kind of that stability where we can slowly add year over year instead of completely going in reverse.
Yeah, what a cool perspective. I didn't even think about it from that standpoint of like, we just got this player, or we just went on a hot streak, or, all of a sudden you're yeah, wow. Jared, efficient growth over growth at all costs.
Yeah, I think this is like a duh thing, right? We saw what happened with growth at all costs. It worked early on. Not a lot of competition, capital was cheaper, all this, and it still blew up, right? So now people are running good businesses, but I don't think efficient growth is the end all be all. Like, I mean, efficient growth, like we're cutting tens of thousands of jobs to grow efficiently, right? Like, who's that efficient for? The company, sure, but it's not efficient or sustainable for the individuals all the time. And I think like a lot of what efficient growth is predicated on is GTM, and it's all one-sided. Okay, let's use this to grow the company. Let's do this, like community-led, event-led, etc. So I think that there's going to be something after it. Like if we're living in the efficient growth world now, what a world, right? Like, I mean, I know it's a bad economy too, but like, come on, there's got to be something else. And like, what I'm thinking is like, none of us can grow in isolation anymore. Like companies, individuals, products, solopreneurs, even, you can't grow in isolation. And like how we're growing now, like Mary, like we have, let's say, event-led growth. Like this is big. We're coming up with topics ourselves and throwing it at ICP, at personas, all of this one-sided. Okay. Community-led growth. We're dropping content, and we're conflating community, by the way. We have a newsletter, same thing. we're just conflating that the community world, right? Like everybody in the chat is my community. Okay. Like, I guess, and they're probably all in Rev Genius, but like, it's very one-sided. If event-led were run in a true collaboration, they'd run differently. Like, what does the audience want versus the brand just dropping content, right? Like, this is what you need to versus what you need to learn. Like with community-led, it's become brand, company, or individual putting out same thing. And this is supposed to be two-way community. So collaboration as it stands is self-serving. With true collaborative growth, you're creating abundance versus just harvesting demand. And there's more to that. So like efficient growth, but and we're all talking about it. It's what the people want and all of that.
Yeah.
I think we got to do that. Are you really asking them? Like, are you really, really empathizing? Are you really like helping them get jobs and stuff? I mean,
Yeah.
you want to rattle off 10 different companies that have cut 10,000 plus people? Like, do you really care about the people? Like, forget the people you work with, like people in general. Like, no, we're sustaining our company. So I think that there needs to be something on top of efficient growth. Thank you. Soapbox done.
Yeah. Well, and I also think efficient growth, cool. If we all knew all along that we could grow more efficiently and have a better like P&L and like our profitability is like, we would have been doing it all along, right? So like, just because we make some kind of reckoning based on the economy that we're like, all right, now we're efficient growth, you still have to change strategies. Like, what does that mean? You know, what does that mean? It's not all of a sudden you just cut people and now you're growing efficiently. You might not be growing at all. You're going to have to change strategy somehow, which I do think is interesting as people do turn to community as a way and what you think community means.
And that's a big thing, right? Like, we're saying efficient growth and it's like really just a stopgap. It's a phrase. There's not like a game plan on how to do it. And side note, bootstrap businesses have been running efficiently since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Unless it's like family money or something, which has happened too.
Yeah. I agree. This one is like everywhere. You can't get away from it. Chat GPT. Turns out, what if I'm not even real? I'm just a bot, y'all. I'm not. But AI driving the sales motion. I think anyone who has taken a scroll through a LinkedIn feed has probably heard or seen someone talking about this. I have an opinion here too, but I'll go last. But Alex, what are y'all seeing, hot or not, on AI driving sales motions?
I think for us, hot in the past few years, we took the tool on called Conversica about 2 years ago to really kind of help find a new strategy and structure sales. Right. For us, it's how can our sales floor be more efficient? How can we increase ROI? How can we help those out on a day-to-day basis? And for us, it was AI. I think there is a human element to this, which there always will be. I don't think you can ever be fully functioning without that human side, without that sales. But for us, it has been huge. It has probably cut our sales staff in half. We are more efficient. I think it definitely helped when we went from a 19-win team to a finals team, and kind of seeing that complete 180 turn and what's our strategy, what's our focus, who are we, our branding, and how do we kind of use AI to help get that message out. We had such a quick turnaround. And now for us, the past 2 years, how have we been able to use AI to continue that messaging? What's our new messaging? Retention has been a huge factor for us, as well as kind of that service and that human side. How do you make AI more human, relatable, more of that empathy, without completely driving out that human factor? I think will always be a combination for us. So now, how do we incorporate more into our brand messaging, marketing, chat boxes? So for us, I think it's going to be a huge part of our organization moving forward. I think it's in addition to, instead of in replacement, to jobs and teams.
Yeah, that's awesome that you have already run that experiment and have like the ROI. Like, you're like, yeah, we did it and it worked awesome.
It worked, and now it's different, right? It's not all about revenue, which I think is kind of the hardest thing, especially for execs, where it's not all about the money at the end of the day, right? How do we help become more efficient? How do we push emails, messaging, and take time off everyone's plate? So for us, it's how do we become more efficient? So less about the bottom line with some of these AI tools and more about our brand and organization as a whole. How do we kind of push that forward? And in return, that will show ROI. So I think that's kind of the biggest bridge we're trying to gap over the next year or two.
Yeah. Jared, hot or not?
It's super hot. But especially if you have the people that understand that you need to look at your process, and it sounds like the Suns definitely do, and find where the bottlenecks are, right? And then ask the question, like, have we maximized what humans could do here? The answer a lot of times is yes, or at that cost, I should say, without adding 10x humans, which isn't an efficient growth type of thing. So AI comes there. So like if you're just saying like, oh, cool new AI tool, let me try it, it's not going to be as strategic. But if you're super strategic with it, very, very hot. You could produce content so fast and answer questions in a big way, and really do a lot. Like we wanted to like run all of RevGenius's database through ChatGPT to standardize for us versus having an external agency do it. Like stuff like that is crazy.
Yeah. I love what Steve put in the chat too. He said hot, but not as hot as many think. It'll quickly create content, online interaction management, definitely true. And salespeople like running A/B tests quickly with messaging and things like that. But I do think it will put more emphasis on community, not audience, as Jared said, but community, because I think buyers will want to like collaborate with other people like Alex of like, hey, what did y'all roll out and how did that work? Or they want to talk to a real person who's been there, done that, and not just rely on different forms of AI to either tell them what to do or no strategy, like you alluded to also. So I don't know. I think with AI, we'll see like a rise of a more importance of humans in communities having conversations and referral programs. And I don't know, I think it'll be a bigger focus.
I'm going to be a prompt engineer after RevGenius. It seems to be like there's people like literally not getting paid for 12 hours a day just figuring this out. Oh, they're going to get paid. And then AI will figure out how to replace them.
They're going to get paid. They're waiting. All right. That's a good take too. I do see that in a lot of LinkedIn content that must be performing well. Prompt engineer is not the term I knew, but like these 12 prompts will change your business. You see that a lot. Okay, here's a great one. Process trends, discovery, hot or not. Y'all feel free to put it in the chat because I bet a lot of people have this. And, you know, at our conference last year, we do a sales coaching conference every year. Doug Landis, who's a friend of ours in the VC space, he was like, discovery is dead, I think was the name of the talk. So Jared, I'll throw it to you first, but discovery as part of the sales process, hot or not?
Why is it dead? I'm curious. I don't want to answer this anymore because
here's why. So here was the take. Discovery is dead, meaning what we call discovery is really just putting people in a firing squad line of questions. Like it's not about actually discovering how to help them. The way we run discovery is like
acronym selling.
Yeah,
that's what I call it. Like you enter your acronym. That's great. What is it? BANT? Is it MedPIC? It doesn't matter. If it has an acronym, do it. So do I think acronym selling is dead? I said, yeah. Discovery dead? Absolutely not. You need to understand where you're at right now, where they want to go, where they have to go because of what like underlying root things, what that gap is worth, and the problems they have that you could solve, right? Like that's gap selling, right? Like Ambition's not going to ask questions about data quality per se, although maybe you will, maybe you have some product cooking or something, but you're probably going to say like, tell me about your enablement culture or your remote teams and how they stay connected or not, and what happened since they went remote and then you find out, wow, they lost $3 million in business. That's what it worth. Well, our product's only 50K. Like that's awesome. Let's place it. Like it's a no-brainer. We could fix that.
And I think if you're asking the person to truly understand their business, like if you're like, I want to understand your business model, how you run, how we might plug in or not. But I think a lot of times it's turned into interrogation for the sake of filling out a Salesforce field. Do you currently coach today? No. Let me fill that in. Where, if you do coach, where are you coaching? Let me fill it in. I think that's what we're calling discovery. And it's like, that's not discovery, man. That's interrogation. Alex, curious how, if y'all do run any acronym selling process or if y'all run discovery as part of your process, or thoughts here?
We do. I think if it's run right with the right people in the room, you see success, right? Whether that's just from a salesperson trying to discover what the client's interest Is it a floor suite, or you best bet for just a season ticket membership? For us, try and discover, okay, what is that next step for us on the retention, on the survey side. So I think in our end, if it's done correctly with the right intent, and I think you truly get to know what does that exec want, where does our new CEO want to go in the direction, and be able to help, then yes, I think we get a lot of just hot button, let's look into this, let's look into that, without any real terms of growth or how is it going to lead to a successful company or successful idea. So I think it can be hot if it's done correctly. But I think without the overkill factor, you can't be in the discovery phase for too long. So I think that's what we found too, is if you're stuck in there for weeks or months trying to figure something out, then you almost have to go back and retool. What are you truly trying to get out of that business? What does that exec truly want? So I think when done, yes, I think discovery will always be a part of kind of our business model, ground up.
I will add this, and I couldn't agree more. Buying committees are getting bigger on products. And if you're just discovering on one person in that buying committee, Mary probably has the data. I'm undata Jared. You have a lower chance of winning that deal.
That's right.
She has the exact
Multi-credit.
number. You have a 68% lower chance. It's probably a high number.
I
So
wish
you have to
I had a link to the
Oh, there's
content,
only 2 left.
but we did have a webinar recently where it was like the secret buyer you didn't know you have, because right now everyone is selling to the CFO. Whether that's your persona you think or not, you are selling ultimately to the CFO. So multi-threading has never been more important, and high level, and asking the question, I always like paying attention when I have bought software in the past, like how I know what they're ultimately trying to do is get to power, right? Like at some point someone's like, get to power, are you the person who's going to sign or whatever? And I love the question I got once was, if someone inside, because I was the champion, let's say I was like trying to bring it on, but someone was like, if someone were to kill this deal for you or mess you up, who would it be? And I immediately knew. I was like, oh, it'd be so-and-so. Like really internally, I have to get past so-and-so. And I just loved the way they framed that question of like, who do we also need to bring in sooner? Who will kill this deal for you? But I do think multi-threading is important. And I think whether you know it or not, in this climate, you are selling to a CFO. Next topic, we talked a little bit about community versus audience, but community-led growth, hot or not. You see a take here from Scott Least of like, convinced that the go-to-market is going to be replaced by go-to-network community. So like sort of what we had talked about earlier of like people asking people or their internal networks. But whoever wants to go first here, hot or not on community-led growth.
I can take it. I think hot. I think who are you without your community in a way, right? They're your audience. They're going to lead your growth in almost every facet. So for us in the current moment for the Suns, how can we continue to grow our community, not only locally, but globally, right? I think so many people just think audience and community and growth has to come from ROI. That has to be the bottom line. But in our mind, how can we kind of form that relationship with them, with our branding, our messaging? How can we get to know them on an individual basis? How can we grow our community, make them feel like they're a part of our team? So for us, it is huge. And I think it's an ever evolving for us. I think it's a week to week, month to month, depending on where we're at, certain policies, economy. So I think it's greater for us than just the world of sports. So for us, I think our community, we would be nothing without it, whether they're here or from afar. So I think this will always be hot. And if you can learn to continue to build that relationship with them, I think you'll be in a great spot.
Yeah.
I think it's hot with a caveat. Again, one-sided go to market, right? So why do companies want community? 2 reasons. Acquisition
Yeah.
and retention. If those things were gone with community, would it be hot? Fuck no. Hell no.
No.
Anybody who says otherwise is a purist that it's a personal thing that they're with, right? No board, anything is gonna pass all spending all your resources if you're not getting the two things that community are for.
Yeah.
So it's hot, but if you don't get to that collaborative growth level, like right, like where it's two-sided, you're going to burn the community out, and they're going to distrust you because eventually those two avenues
Yeah.
acquisition or growth and retention. I mean, retention will be great, right? Retention is cool, but that acquisition avenue, especially, they're going to tell you to go punt.
What do you think is in it? So like, if I'm a person being like, yeah, I want acquisition and retention as a person who's like trying to build a community, what are the members looking to get out of it? Do you think?
Ask them.
Yeah.
Ask them. I don't have the answer.
I'm in
It
a
all
few
depends on what.
communities.
Like if we're asking a coaching community, they might say like, I'm looking to get coaching.
Yeah.
Great.
I want templates. I want examples. I want referrals. I want to feel like I know what I'm doing. You know, I want to like collaborate with like-minded people.
How many communities, advisorships, influencers, all of this are two-sided?
I don't know.
I
Like,
advise it does like I'm not gonna go there, but like
yeah.
we'll just pause on that.
Yeah. And y'all, I'm gonna go to the next slide, but peep in the chat too, because Steve does have a good take
Thanks.
about go to market versus go to network, which I do like. Steve, MVP in the chat today. We're gonna just
Yeah.
have you on the next Hot or Not. That will wrap up all of our topics and our quick hot takes. I do want to make a plug for something that is super hot, which is Peak, our sales coaching summit. It's coming back to Nashville this October. Mark your calendars. Tuesday, October 24th, Nashville. There's no greater place to be than Nashville in October, I would say. It's beautiful here. It's a single day conference without any corporate bullshit. It's very informal. It's very fun. It's very like, you know, just you and a bunch of buddies hanging out, talking about awesome stuff. So mark your calendars. And I do want to say special thank you to Alex and Jared for coming on our inaugural Hot or Not webinar. Thank you both so much for your perspective and opinions. And thank you to everyone in the chat, but especially Steve. Yeah, Steve, come to Peak, wear your shorts and crop tops, obviously. That is all we have for y'all today. We will send out the recording. Thank you to everyone who participated. And Jared, where can we find you? Are you LinkedIn, Insta? What's the best place?
You find me all of them. If you Insta's the Jared Robin, Twitter is the Jared Robin. I haven't posted in 2 or 3 years on Instagram. You could see my past life there pretty clearly. I'm not deleting that. / Jared Robin at LinkedIn, and come into Rev Genius, revgenius.com.
Yeah, where can we find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn as well. And come October, just support the Suns and look what we're doing from a business standpoint. So appreciate having me on.
Yes, thank you so much, y'all. I'm on LinkedIn. I got a Fitstagram running. I'm on Twitter. I will see everyone there in all the places. Y'all might even find me cooking on TikTok, so find me there too. Until next time, thank you all. Talk soon.